Well, howdy everyone, and welcome to day 5 of our Faith at Work 5-day virtual event. And I'm so excited again that you chose to join us today. And I'm Bobby Albert with Values Driven Culture. And, since we've got a special weekend coming up, tell me in the chat window, who's your favorite football team that you're going to be really rooting for at the Super Bowl? If you would share. Oh, okay. Got the Chiefs here. I bet, Bob, you're going to be wearing red Sunday, aren't you? Oh, hey, Jim. There's another Chiefs, another Kansas City, Joanne. Boy, look at here, another Kansas City, Ross. Kathy, another Kansas City coming in. You know, the way this is sounding, it sounds like Kansas City is going to win. Anybody for Tampa Bay? Or you just don't know? Or you don't care, maybe. I don't know. Oh, there's another Kansas City joining the group. Well, before I introduce our guest speaker today, I wanted to mention that our guest speaker will be giving every attendee a free gift at the end of this main session before we go to the Q&A session. And we also just are making all of the remaining Q&A sessions open to everyone. And I hope you plan to stay with us for the entire 1 hour and find out for yourself how good these Q&A sessions have been, and as well as the main session. And I bet today, especially with our guest speaker, there's going to be lots of questions. And the recordings of all 5 days will be available to those who will take advantage of our special offer. And you will find a link that'll be in the chat window. If you haven't done that yet, you can go to that link and to be able to get the recordings. Well, our guest speaker today is Hiram Sasser. He's the Executive General Counsel for First Liberty Institute, where he oversees First Liberty's litigation and media efforts. His practice focused primarily on First Amendment and other constitutional and civil rights issues. He has numerous appearances on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, CNN, and BBC. Boy, we're going to run out of the alphabet here. And he can be heard on various radio stations as well. And his military service, and you'll notice he'll have a sword on his wall. It's an honor that he received, which includes as headquarters commander, a company executive officer, training officer in the United States Army Reserve. Well, Hiram, my good friend, welcome to Faith at Work.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, Hiram, I know that your topic today is really a big one. And your topic is faith in the workplace, how to honor the Lord and the law. But before we get into your topic, Hiram, could you just share how the Lord led you to First Liberty Institute? And could you just take 30 seconds and share that story with us?
Well, sure. I had never intended I'd actually never intended to practice law. I planned on being in in the Army. I was in the Army Reserve while I was going to law school. And then after law school, I intended to be active duty, but not as a JAG officer. I wanted to be an armor officer, a tanker. And that's what I was branched at as an officer in the Army Reserve. But what ended up happening was I had a catastrophic injury in training, and the Army treated me like royalty, but I ended up having to go do something else. And so I thought I might get into business litigation, and then this opportunity came open at First Liberty. I didn't really know much about religious liberty or about constitutional law, but I felt like the Lord called me to do something about this, and so I joined, and here I am almost 20 years later.
Wow. Well, I know you've been a big contributor, and you've been with Kelly Shackelford, who's the president, for a long time. And I know that both you and Kelly have taught me a lot about what's legal and what's not legal over the years. And so is, I really, you have 2 points of interest that you would like to share with us today. You know what? I'm from Texas, and I'm all ears today. So I just can't wait to what you're going to share with us.
Well, sure. I think, one of the most important things that people need to know is that whenever you have a business, unless you're a religious nonprofit or a church or something like that, or a ministry, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is going to apply to you. And we'll talk a lot about Title VII. It'll be the main focus of in the background, at least, of all the things that I have to say. But that's a law that requires that you have to provide a religious accommodation to your employees when they have a religious objection to a particular work requirement, unless doing so would cause an undue hardship. And also prohibits religious discrimination. And religious discrimination can take a couple of different forms. It could be direct religious discrimination. Hey, I don't like you because of your religion, and I'm taking this adverse employment action against you. Or it could just it could be something like, well, I have this thing in place, and it has a sort of the net outcome of excluding people of a particular religion. But so with that background in mind, I think what we'll get started is that, the first thing that I think people need to know is that as a business, the business owner or the employer also has rights and has religious liberty freedoms. And those freedoms include to be able to express themselves and their company values as the faith message, and consistent with whatever biblical values or faith message that they want to convey. You might be familiar with some examples of this that you would see, or something like Hobby Lobby or Chick-fil-A, where they will wear their faith position on their sleeve. That type of conveying, this is our mission, this is what I'm about, this is what we're about. Those are perfectly fine. The issues that can always come into play is on the counter side, which is that you have to do it in a way that is also makes it where if you have an employee who doesn't agree with that particular religious position, that they also have a place in the company, and that they do not feel like they are being discriminated against because of the faith position of the company. It's really not that hard to achieve these objectives simultaneously. The biggest issue really is, number one, is that everything that you do as an employer, whether it's you're going to have a Bible study, for example, or you have a mission statement, maybe you want people to memorize what your mission statement is, whatever it may be that has religious references. Number one is that, whatever those types of things are, those things have to be voluntary, that are part of whatever the religious activity is. So that's the number one thing. And then secondly is the lack of participation in something religious cannot have some sort of adverse impact on the person's standing in the company, or their compensation, or their position, or even like their scheduling and things of that nature. So those are the sort of the main areas. So let's break it down, and that, faith can be part of your company culture. Certainly, I've explained some of the examples. They kind of come to mind. It's pretty easy for you to visualize that. The overarching thing that has to be, though, is that accommodations have to be made for people who are of a different faith or at no faith at all. And so those are the things that I think that are really the most important. And if you can balance those things out by expressing yourself, but you're not requiring people to believe it themselves, you're just saying, this is what our company's about, and we'll accommodate everybody who has a religious faith that's different, or maybe no religion at all, then that's how you achieve that objective.
You made me think that our director of human resource, because our culture was pretty Christian oriented, because I saw my work as a ministry, not a job, going all the way back to 1987. And, I don't know who was a Christian or not in our company. And of course, we're not able to ask somebody, hey, are you a Christian? And we only employed Christians. Well, we just can't do that legally. But our human resource director, he started let's say we had a really high potential candidate to be employed by us. He would just simply say, hey, our owner's a real strong and bold Christian. And if you came to work here, would you feel comfortable in that kind of culture here? And actually, we had a couple people say, "No, I don't think this would fit me," and that's okay. And when when I first started in '87, I started having a weekly Bible study for employees, and it was totally volunteer. And that kind of ties in with what you said. And of course, I do also remember we had someone in the company who was a good employee, and but they were of a different faith. And because we would open up company-wide meetings with a prayer, and I would always go check with him and say, look, I'm going to be praying here, and just in just a little bit, if you want to step out, just feel free to step out if you want to, if you don't want to hear the prayer. What was interesting, that person never left. Hiram, I can't wait I'm sure there's going to be a lot of questions. And Hiram, I just want to tell you, when we get to the Q&A session, man, they've been some tough questions. But I'm sure you've had a lot of tough questions, being in a courtroom. So I know you have a couple more points of interest, and you mind sharing about those as well?
Well, sure. That, again, I talked about that any kind of faith-based activities must be voluntary. I think, Bobby, you pointed out, obviously one of the easiest examples is a Bible study or a prayer time. You can't, you can have that time available. You can make that available for your employees, but you can't require anybody to participate. I saw a case that got filed, and the lawyer for the company had told the company, according to the lawsuit, that it would be okay to make everybody go to the Bible study as long as you're paying them. That was really bad advice, and they're going to end up having to pay a significant price for having to do that. So obviously, it has to be voluntary. And again, participation can have no effect on any kind of compensation or position or advancement. There's another thing that I think a lot of people forget, and I think it's important to remember this, is that all of your employees are entitled to a religious accommodation. And as an employer, you have a duty to affirmatively accommodate people's faith to the best that you can, as long as it does not cause what's called an undue hardship to your business. But that also applies to people of the faith that is maybe shared by you as the employer, and also applies to you if you are also an employee of the company. Depends on your corporate structure, but for some small businesses, the person that is the owner it's really, they've set up obviously a corporation. They may have shares. There may be a board of directors, and they may be classified as an employee. All employees are entitled to religious accommodation. What I mean by this is that part of the reason why you're providing a Bible study, or you may pray or do some other things, is because you're providing a religious accommodation to the people that are doing that activity too. And so if, for example, you have an employee who says, hey, I'm of a different faith, and I don't like that, Susie over here keeps praying or talking to me about her faith. I feel like, the company's making me do this and that. A first line response might be, well, wait a minute. You got to understand that we also have a duty to accommodate Susie's faith as well. And so we can't discriminate against her. So for me to go have the conversation to say, I have to, hey, Susie, you have to stop sharing your faith at work, would actually create a potential Title VII problem vis-a-vis Susie and the company. And so, a lot of times we forget and we think that well, if it's a company that's emphasizing faith as part of their company culture, and there are other employees that are part of that faith tradition that also enjoy being there and they like that particular part of the culture, and then someone complains about one of the employees' actions vis-a-vis religion, you have to stop and remember, it's not like you can just go tell Bob, hey, Bob, never mind, you can't pray, or Bob, hey, cut it out, because we don't want to get sued by Larry over here. Bob actually has a Title VII right to religious accommodation, and it's not, so you can't just go tell Bob not to share his faith or whatever, not to pray, not to maybe hold a Bible study or something like that. That creates its own Title VII problem. So you have to remember, even the people who share the faith of the employer, they also are entitled to Title VII protection.
So, would you mind sharing a little bit about that, about the effects of potential issues dealing with compensation or position or advancement?
Well, sure. One of the things that would be like a really terrible thing for you to do is to, for example, keep attendance records of who comes to the Bible study. Because let's say you did that, right? And Billy never comes. And then let's say for some other reason, it's nothing to do with that, you let Billy go, or Billy doesn't get a raise or whatever. If Billy decides to sue you, one of the things he'll say is, see, they were keeping records. They knew I didn't come to the Bible study, and then that was the reason why. So if an employee, their participation or lack thereof in any kind of religious activity cannot be the basis for compensation, position, or scheduling, or any other benefit or perk of the of the job. And that means that you can't both penalize someone for not participating or reward someone for participating. In other words, if you have any kind of religious cultural events that's part of your company culture, a prayer time, a Bible study, something of that nature, you cannot take into account someone's participation either in a good way, like you say, oh wow, that's really good, and that's part of it, or in a bad way. And that means that's not just don't put it down on paper. I mean, that's really true. I mean, like, don't do that, right? Don't take it into account. But certainly never talk about employees, whether they participate or not, or or even use code words like whether they bought into the culture in that sense of the religious side of whatever it is that is the religious component of your company culture, and certainly don't talk about that on email. Those are exhibits but you shouldn't be talking about that kind of thing at all. Look, the reason why you're having a faith component of your business is because you feel strongly about it, that the Lord will bless your, will bless your activities, and you can be a blessing to others by honoring the Lord through your business. Let the Lord handle his own work. You handle your business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, when you're talking about volunteer, is in our company, we had so much ministry activity, we had to hire an extra person in our human resource department. And but we also provided, it was all volunteer. We would buy Christian concert tickets. We would buy pay for all travel expenses to women of faith. Or they used to have Promise Keepers years ago. We would pay for employees for their kids to go to a camp, a Christian camp, if they wanted to allow that to happen, and or even pay for a registration fee to attend a marriage enrichment seminar, or any of those kind of things. But it was always volunteer. And we also did just what you said. We never kept track of who went or anything like that. So that nobody could say, hey, they're marking me, and those kind of things. Because, you never know. People may be a Christian, but they just, I don't know, they just don't participate, in some of the things like that. That's okay. So we even had, Hiram, yesterday we had Doug Fagerstrom with Marketplace Chaplains. And of course, we subscribe to them. We had 4 chaplains in our company on a weekly basis. And I know that's going to bring out more, questions and at our Q&A time. So, but Hiram, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our attendees today?
Yeah, I think that I think the main thing is that you have to remember that all of your employees have a religious freedom protected by Title VII, and that includes your duty to accommodate people of faith. And part of that accommodation could be providing a prayer time, could be providing opportunity for Bible study. Those are not activities that you're having to constantly guard against and say, well, gosh, if someone it doesn't like that, I have to be worried about that person. No, you have to actually be worried about making sure that you're trying to provide a religious accommodation to your employees as much as possible, and that includes even the Bible studies and everything that you're doing. So it's not like it's It's, oh, hey, am I allowed to do this? You're doing something that in a certain sense, you're kind of required to do. And it just so happens to also be matching up with your faith. So I think people tend to worry a little too much. The main thing obviously is do not uh, have any kind of participation in those types of activities. Uh, uh, have any consideration at all in compensation, advancement, and those sorts of things.
You know, just a couple other ideas for people. And Hiram, you came as a guest speaker, for me, as well as Kelly Shackerford, and we were heavily involved in our National Trade Association, even the International Trade Association, and the State of Texas Trade Association, and I even started a local group luncheons that I know that you came, excuse me, that you came and spoke. And what it was like on these, I was in that glamorous business in the moving and storage business. So is at these trade association conventions, I started these Movers for Christ prayer breakfasts, and y'all would come and speak as one of the guest speakers. So I'm so grateful for those times, and people still come. It's amazing that people still comment about those prayer breakfasts. But Hiram, could you also share where people can learn more about First Liberty Institute, and also share about the free gift for those in the audience today, please?
Well, sure. People can go to firstliberty.org, and we have just a ton of of materials and brochures that cover a wide variety of topics that are available on our website. And I would encourage you. It's a website at firstliberty.org that's rich with content on a lot of different topics, and including employment topics. And if you go to firstliberty.org, you will find that there is a plethora of things that are available to you. And the good news is you also can contact us if you have further questions, or you ever run into an issue or a problem and you're trying to figure out how to navigate it. We're happy to help, happy to discuss those things with you and point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and you'll find in the chat window the link to this free gift that First Liberty is offering, and so thank you, Hiram, for that as much. And excuse me. Well, before I introduce Bob Hayton for our Q&A session instructions, I want to thank Hiram, and for each one of you that's here today, and for being part of our day 5 of our Faith at Work 5-day event. And let's show our appreciation in the chat window, or simply clap your hands or lift your hands for Hiram. And since today is our day 5 of Faith at Work event, I want to learn from you, and please feel free to give me a feedback directly at my email address. It's pretty simple, bobby@bobbyalbert.com. And you'll find in the chat window that email address if you would like to give me some feedback. And I have a special announcement. I shared this yesterday, but I wanted to do it again today, is that we have an upcoming one-day intensive that will turn average bosses into exceptional leaders. And if that's you or someone in your business that that you want to join me for the True North Business Business One Day virtually intensive. It'll be Friday, February 19th, and it will be interactive that will shift your focus, improve your leadership, and transform your business. And I'm offering a deeply early bird discount price that is only, and again, that's only available to who have been part of our Faith at Work virtual event. But this discount it's time sensitive, and it's only good through Monday night, which is coming up pretty quick. So you can find in the chat window the link to all the details. And I just want to encourage you to integrate the Lordship of Jesus Christ into every area of your life, be it with your family, church, the workplace, or even in the marketplace. And now I want to introduce Bob Payton for our Q&A session instructions.
All right. Thank you very much, Bobby. Appreciate that. And Hiram, thank you so much for your comments today. Been very, very helpful, and spurred on a couple of thoughts in my mind that I want to go back to. But we welcome everybody else to ask any questions that they might have, and how we can be mindful of what Hiram is saying here, and make sure that we're staying within the law, but we're doing our best to carry out our faith in the workplace. So if you've got any of those questions, you can raise your hand here on the Zoom. We'll call on you, we'll unmute you, and you can ask that yourself, or you can just put it in the chat window, and we will be glad to go ahead and ask that and get Hiram's response. Hiram, to get us kind of started, you mentioned that reasonable accommodation, and that's always a tricky one to me. How far do we have to go? Bobby was mentioning at the outset, leading a meeting and letting someone know that maybe is not a Christian, that there is going to be a Christian prayer. What if that non-Christian wants to verbalize a prayer at a company meeting? Is that a reasonable accommodation that a Christian business owner would have to make?
No.
Good.
No. The only accommodation you have to make in that circumstance would be that the person would not, obviously not have to be there during that time, and do it in a way that, make it in a way that would be what I would say non-embarrassing for that person to not be there, if that makes sense. And so typically, like if you're going to do a prayer time, it's probably good to do it at the beginning of the meeting. And if somebody says, well, I have an objection to that, say, oh, that's fine. Just come late. Perfectly fine. And if anybody bothers you about coming late, come see whoever's your human. If it's just you, if it's a small business, then come see me. Or if you have a human resources person or department, say, go see them. If somebody bothers you, but you are perfectly fine being late, and you don't have to time it perfectly either, so if you're a little extra late, it's fine too. So you got to build in a little margin, but no, you would not have to surrender the microphone to one of your employees.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. A follow on there. Someone, Gary Paul asked, are accommodations the same for temporary employees as well as a regular full-time employee?
Sure. The test is whether or not they're an employee or not. And so if they're a contractor, then Title VII would not apply. If they are an employee, even a temporary employee or a part-time employee, it does apply. Now, of course, I don't have to tell you guys this. I mean, this is not my area of the law, but it's a area of the law that you need to be familiar with, which is you may think you have a contractor, When you find out later in the court case, you really had an employee. That can happen quite often, especially in certain jurisdictions. So just because you're using that label doesn't necessarily make them a contractor versus an employee per se, even under Title VII. So obviously, make sure you understand those. When I say contractor and employee, that you understand those distinctions as they would be applied across other areas of the law as well.
Right. That testing for whether a 1099 or a payroll type employee is tricky, murky water for other lawyers to deal with for sure. So Sylvia has a question in the example of giving away tickets to Christian concerts, etc. Any obligation to provide other free stuff to those of different faiths?
The answer to that is no, unless if they are just being used as like a first come, first serve type of scenario. Hey, this is something that we're offering, first come, first serve. It would be no different than offering basketball tickets, but yet not all your employees care anything about basketball. If you're using them as a reward, then they are technically kind of becoming part, or a bonus or something. They're technically becoming kind of part of their compensation. And in that regard, you would not want to use like religious concert tickets in that manner. So you could use them in the manner of on a first come, first serve, but not on a reward based manner or something of that nature.
Very good point. Go ahead, Bobby.
Yeah, if I might add, we provided with so many opportunities for people to participate in that had nothing to do with what faith that you come from, or what you're if you're a Christian or not. And I think for us it was just like it was just one of those things that was available, and you could volunteer if you wanted the tickets. If you didn't, that's fine too. So
it's always good if we have limited supply, you do a drawing.
Yeah, I can see that. Yep.
You do a drawing, and that makes it easy.
Okay, trying to scroll back here. I think we had one about religious holidays that somehow.
Well, yeah, religious holidays is that's actually probably I think it's probably the easiest one to deal with, because there's just the largest body of law dealing with religious accommodations for religious holidays. So as an employer, you can decide whatever holiday you want to have. I mean, you can say, look, I'm a Star Wars fan and May 4th is off. That's like kind of like the official Star Wars day. You can do that if you want. It doesn't matter. So you can pick your own religious holidays. If someone comes along and says that, hey, I can't work this coming Friday because it's the holiday of, XYZ, I don't, whatever it is, then you have an affirmative duty to accommodate that, unless it would cause what's called an undue hardship on your business. So now the question is, well, what's an undue hardship? Well, the smaller your business, I forgot to tell you this, and I need to point this out. I apologize for neglecting this. 16 employees is the cutoff. That's the cutoff for Title VII application. If you have less than 16 employees, Title VII does not apply to you. Now, you may be in a state that has a lower threshold for the state equivalents. Almost every state is a state equivalent to Title VII. They're almost identical, but some states may have a lower numerical threshold. So that's one of those numbers that once you hit 16, 15, no, 16, yes, Title VII applies. And so, the smaller you are, obviously the greater the impact is. the test that the courts have said that you use to determine if it's undue hardship, because undue hardship sounds like that's a really hard standard for the employer to meet. The courts have said that if there's a de minimis impact, or if the impact is more than de minimis, then that's an undue hardship. So that's a pretty easy standard for most employers to meet. Let's take Bobby, old company, his moving company, into account. Let's say there's a big move coming, and he's got 12 people scheduled that day, needs all 12, and there is no one else who can fill in at all. All right. And this person's saying, hey, I really need this holiday off. Okay. Bobby's going to have to prove that. There's no way now, I don't know his business, but I'm going to guess that Bobby's got more than 12 movers, and he's got somebody else that's available that could become available. And that mover sounds kind of fungible to me anyway. And so as a judge, I'm probably going to go, I don't know about that one. I think you're going to have to accommodate there, Bobby. But let's say it was moving. I'm going to say some highly specialized computer equipment. Bobby only has 2 people that can do it. It's a 2-person job, and the job has to be done that Friday. Bobby could say, look, I can't let you off because it's you're it. Without it, I don't get it, and we lose the big contract. That's a huge hit to the company. I just can't take it. That's a different animal, and Bobby's not going to have to make the accommodation there. Now, that's the legal side, right? You pull that stunt a number of times, and you're going to have an employee uprising on your hands, right? I mean, you want to be an accommodating. You want to present, if part of your culture, your business culture is a culture of faith, faith culture, and you're trying to express the love of Christ in your business, sticking your thumb in the eye of some of your employees over and over again is probably not the best witness program. So that's one of those situations where you have to make those kinds of calls about that. But the law is not going to require you to accommodate it when it can't be done when you let that person go, if that makes sense.
Great answer. Good question. Got a couple of more here, and Sylvia, I hope I'm going to give voice to this properly. If not, would welcome you to ask it. But is there a process of complaints that you follow? So I've got to guess that her question means if there's a question of not being given reasonable accommodation or too much religion in that workplace or something like that. Is there a process that you would recommend them following to answer those complaints and work it out?
I think that the first thing that you have to, if you get a complaint, hey, I feel pressured to attend this particular, I know you said the Bible study is voluntary, but I'm really concerned about it, and I feel pressured to participate so that I can fit in. All right. I think that it would be an error to just go, well, look, you don't have to participate, so have a nice day. That's probably not a good idea. You don't want it. What you don't want is you don't want them to sort of fill in motivations and things like that otherwise don't exist, that are in your mind. So I think it's better to say to have a point person where that person can express themselves, and then can be reassured that they will be properly accommodated, and that their participation or lack thereof is not part of any kind of evaluation in our business. And I think you want to make sure that you're constantly emphasizing that. But don't ignore complaints. That's always a very bad thing to do. But don't you don't want to create a culture of you know, what I would call the culture of, uh, of, of being driven by complaints. You need to have a place where people can complain, where they can complain with a level of confidence that there's a confidentiality involved, and that they will be heard, and that their request will be honored to the very best that the business can possibly do. And I think that that's important. I mean, you know, if you've got a really large business, a really large organization, the only way that you're going to be successful in handling these complaints so that they don't metastasize into a big deal is you're going to have to choose one of two paths. One is that you have lower level supervisors just refer the complaint up to like an HR person or someone higher who's trained, who knows how to do it. Or B, you're going to have to invest a lot of energy and time training lower level supervisors on how to handle those frontline complaints. Probably more cost effective for you to have a person to refer the complaint to. And in that case, you want your supervisor, frontline supervisor, saying nothing. Mm-hmm. Oh, you have a concern about a religious accommodation. You know, great. You need to go see Sylvia. You know, feel free to go see Sylvia now or at any time that's convenient for you. Have a nice day. And then let Sylvia handle it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Question from Alan, concerned with the company leadership. Is there a point legally that it becomes problematic for company leadership to participate in the voluntary religious activities? Any legal ramifications in terms of implied preference for employees that attend?
If you tell one of your employees, including one of your company leaders, that they should not participate in a religious activity, they can sue you for that. So if someone says to you, hey, I noticed that you're letting all these managers or whatever, you know, that, or like all managers participate. So, you know, I feel like that's sending the wrong signal. You know, whoever your HR person might say, well, you realize that every employee's religious liberty has to be accommodated under Title VII. We're not allowed to distinguish between people just because they're at a certain level. And so it's actually, you know, just as it would, you know, we would never require you to attend. If you wanted to attend, we couldn't tell you can't attend. That would create another legal problem. And so yeah, I think that typically will solve it. You got to remember, all employees have religious liberty, have Title VII rights, not just the one that's complaining because they don't like it, that's inconsistent with the company culture. You're actually accommodating the religious freedom rights under Title VII of your employees who are participating themselves.
Great. Good answer. Appreciate that. Denise has a question here that she works in a region with several nationalities that are prominent in our local communities. And she uses workplace chaplains, but careful about Bible studies and collective meeting opportunities for religious purposes because she understands that she has to allow the same opportunities for all religions, or have confidence that the Lord's will prevail and it won't have undue hardship needing to accommodate other faith-based activities that may not be of Christian values. She chooses to be more reserved, avoiding what I presuppose could cause conflict or create interruptions. What do other managers or owners, part of this meeting, feel about that? Wish I were in the Bible Belt.
Well,
I'm not sure it's easy anywhere, but go ahead, Hiram.
No, I don't think it's easy anywhere anymore. But let me give you an example of the neighborhood that I live in, Frisco, Texas. My neighborhood in Frisco, Texas is 80% first generation immigrants from India. There is a massive Hindu temple right down the street. and they advertise the homes for sale in my neighborhood in various cities in India. And so we have the Indian grocery store and various restaurants and whatever. Okay. There are a wide variety of faith traditions in India that all those people are coming to Frisco and they're bringing, right? And so they're in my neighborhood. We all play, we have a big basketball league. They love having sports leagues and stuff. It's in their communities in India. They brought that tradition here. So I'm in the basketball league, the neighborhood basketball league. I'm fairly certain, well, this is all pre-COVID, of course, but I'm fairly certain that I'm the only Christian on my basketball team. Although I suspect there's a closeted Christian that just doesn't want to speak up in front of his other neighbors. He's from India too. But the thing of it is that I found, at least in that interaction, is that if you wear your faith on your sleeve and make it comfortable for other people to wear their faith on their sleeve, then your faith gets a better airing out than it would if, in that face of all that diversity, you decided to close up. And what I mean by that is that let's say if I had a business and I was in a very diverse area, a lot of people with a lot of different faiths, what I would do is I would try to open it up as much as possible. I would say, here, we have a Bible study over here. If you have a faith tradition and you would like to start, something that's like a Bible study, feel free to, start it here. You'll need a point person that kind of coordinates all that, whatever. Okay. And I would open it up. The more you accommodate the religious faith of people who have different faiths, the more you're going to get to express your faith. And the more that the people of your shared faith will be able to express their faith in the work environment. So rather than, if I'm in a diverse thing, constrict, my suggestion would be to expand and be as expansive and as accommodating to all the faiths as possible, because that opens up a level of freedom of dialogue and discussion. So like in my basketball league, we talk about religion all the time. The reason we talk about religion all the time is I ask them about their faith. And that gives me now the opportunity to talk about my faith. And so there's two ways to deal with diversity. Some people try to say, well, let's just reach down to the lowest common denominator. I would suggest, and the law it supports this, which is just be as accommodating to all people of faiths as much as possible. And then that will allow those faith discussions to occur. And if you believe that what you believe is true, then you're not really worried about competing faith discussions. That's actually a good thing. It's better than silence.
That's great. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Kind of goes to that. All right. I think that pretty well takes care of the questions that we have in the queue for the day. Bobby?
Yeah, Hiram, one thing that's been on my mind, so much of, what I'm seeing in the news and things like this, but you're so close to trends in religious liberty and the protection of our First Amendment rights. What comes to my attention more is a Christian business leader, has to do about the cancel culture, the censorship, and those kind of things. So what as far as religious liberty, what kind of trends do you see occurring that you're seeing from y'all's perspective?
Well, obviously, there's a difficulty that arises when you have faith-based or businesses that are trying to also adhere to their faith. You have their business adhere to their faith, and then they're confronted with various moral dilemmas. And in that, and one of the big issues that's out there are sort of the faith, where trying to honor the Lord with my business, and then also being confronted with issues such as the LGBT situation, where you have maybe someone asks for the wedding cake, and you're a baker company, and you don't want to participate in the same-sex marriage or something of that nature. The good news is I have heard of no cases, and I know we would find them because they would exist, because we'd hear about them. No businesses are discriminating against people, LGBT. No people who are calling themselves a faith-driven business are discriminating against LGBT people in the provision of normal services, right? And if you do, don't do that. Don't do that. And tell all your friends, don't do that. That's wrong on a number of levels, and we could discuss the theology of why that's also wrong too. But but then there's this thing. Well, but what if it is? I don't want to participate in a religious ceremony that is a violation of my faith. That's what the wedding thing is about. That's a religious ceremony. I don't want to provide, my business to provide stuff for the purpose of that particular ceremony. That's where those are the battles, and that's a real difficult issue. The where the law is on those issues has been pretty much the faith-based businesses have lost at every stage except for at the United States Supreme Court, where they in the past have won 5-4. What does that mean? What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that's an area that's a very difficult area to tread, but because of the Supreme Court decision in Masterpiece Cakes, that's an issue in which now it's going to be driven more by a marketplace reaction rather than a government reaction. Somebody called me and they said, well, I refuse to do the photography for a same-sex wedding, and I'm getting all these terrible comments on Facebook now. What am I supposed to do? My response is, that's the price you pay for being a person of faith. I mean, there's no way to shield yourself from those things. Okay. So you have to understand that's part of the deal. And so my advice would be there is a way to communicate your faith position that is not taking your thumb and sticking it in the other person's eye. You need to find that way of winsomely conveying your faith position if your business happens to interact with the wedding industry. You need to, for example, find your way of communicating your faith position in a way that expresses love and affection and care for the hearer. Okay. And so, I'm not telling you that that will work all the time. I'm just telling you that, in the cancer culture arena, my best advice for navigating that is really to follow what Jesus followed. Sometimes Jesus told everybody everything. Sometimes Jesus said, don't tell anybody that stuff right now. Don't tell anybody I'm in town or whatever. Sometimes Jesus didn't answer questions with an answer. He answered questions with questions. Okay. My point on this is that you can be clear about who you are, but you don't have to take every opportunity to explain everything to everybody at all times. All right. Jesus certainly didn't feel compelled to do that. And so I don't think we have to explain ourselves to everybody fully all the time. I think we have to be wise about how we convey our position to people. But the most important thing is that you got to find a way to express yourself in a winsome way with care and love for the other person. knowing that they were made in the image of God too, that we're all sinners. We all fall short of the glory of God. And so, we need to treat people the way we would want to be treated, while also honoring God's call on our life.
Hiram, if you could take 30 seconds here, and First Liberty is a nonprofit, and y'all have a unique structure in which you help, like Christian business owners, for example. Would you mind sharing quickly how you're structured and how you can help people if they do get themselves into
Sure.
into trouble? So
Well, since we're completely funded by public support, we're a nonprofit public interest law firm. So people donate money for us to be able to work, and then therefore everything we do is free of charge. So we work for free, and then we have people who donate to us to allow us to be able to do that. The other thing is that whenever we're providing help for somebody, we typically bring in a private firm who also donates their time with us to help sort of expand our team to get a larger reach across the country.
yeah, well, thank you for that. And hey, did you enjoy this Q&A time today with Hiram? And if so, please, some of if you had a great takeaway from this Q&A session, or even during the main session, share them in the chat window. And again, let's thank Hiram to show your appreciation, chat window, or just clap or lift your hands, or let's be cheerleaders for him. So Hiram, thank you so much for being here today. And we're at the conclusion of our 5 days of our Faith at Work. And I just want to simply say, may God bless you, and we will see you again. We will have another 5-day Work is Worship, a virtual event in the month of May. And there'll be a whole new set of guest speakers. And so hopefully you'll come back and you will enjoy it as much as I have in having these guest speakers. So thank you all very much, and y'all can leave. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.